Okay, today we're going to get into asphalt shingles installation, and in reading the installation instructions I see a lot of focus on the stair stepping but not a lot of focus on layout. Just basically what it says is the exposure 5 5/8 and 5 inches. So today I'm going to focus on layout of the panel. So here I have my mock-up. It's basically 8 feet by 8 feet, and it's 2 sheets of plywood, and we're going to get into a starter section to the second course and popping lines so that this panel can be laid out without even laying any shingles. This is going to be important when you're working by yourself, but also with more than one person. So if there's more than one person laying shingles, you got 2 different laying styles, you really need to have some lines. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is determine which one we're laying, either 3 tabs or laminates, dimensionals. On the top of the product wrapper is the warranty information, and on the back is the installation instructions. All this can be found online anymore, and it's a little easier to read, but if you're in a pinch, you can find out some things. And like I said before, the installation instructions focus more on the stair stepping than on the exposure, but they do touch on the exposure. But I'm going to show you how to lay out the panel so it happens automatically, and you can get things done faster, and you don't have to measure each and every course. Now Tamco used to be, several years ago, used to have a 5-inch exposure on their dimensional shingles. If we measure from the sawtooth, we can see that it's 5 5/8 or 5 1/2. It's exactly 5 1/2. The book will tell you 5 5/8. Their 3-tab shingle is just over 5 inches. 5 1/8, 5 1/4. I always register these at 5 inches. It is definitely 12 1/4, so that would be 5 1/8 plus 5 1/8 plus 2 for my headlight. So the first thing we want to do is we want to determine the first line. That's the most important part. Okay, so let's start with the easy one, and that's going to be the 3 tabs. The way to do it is to put your shingle on. If you're hanging your shingles over, which we don't do here in South Florida, we don't hang them over. We have drip edge that has a little edge on it, and we lay it flush, mostly due to high wind. So our edge starts here, so we're not going to subtract anything. However, if you hang your shingles over, it might be wise to go ahead and pop a line for your first course and not your second course. We pop a line for our first course because we line the first course up with the edge. So at 12 1/4 or even 12, just to keep it simple, 12, you're going to overhang it a 1/2 inch. You'd mark your first line at 11 1/2. You'd want to overhang it an inch, mark your first line at 11. You literally just make a mark with a crayon. Crow's foot at 11. And on the other side. Now if you're by yourself, you want to do that pretty close to the edge. If you're with someone, it really doesn't matter because you got somebody to hold your chalk line. I'm going to put a nail in here in order to pop this line. However, that's not my line. That's if you're overhanging it an inch. My line is going to be on the second row. So if I take those are stuck together. If I put my second shingle right here at the top of the keyway, let's see what that measures. 17 and a half. So I'm going to go ahead and measure 17. I'm going to give a little bit for any irregularities in the drip edge, because even though this is only an 8-foot length, you may be dealing with a 50, 60, 100-foot length, and you're going to have some irregularities. It's a good idea to allow for them because you're not going to see it in your road, because you're going to have this lining up with the drip edge. So from the bottom, from the ground, it's going to be nice and flush, and then this first row is going to be nice and straight because you're going to pop a line. Okay, so with my architectural grade shingles here, I'm going to do the same thing. That's 19 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and back off of that a little bit and go 18 and a half. So 18 and a half would be my first line. And that's what we want to do first, is get that first line going. Once you get the first line going, then the lines after that will fall into place. Whether you're popping a line on the first row, if you're overhanging your shingles, or you're popping a line on the second row and you're not overhanging your shingles, the first line is what you want to get. So my mock-up is going to be with 3 tabs. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward with 3 tabs and get that first line going. Okay, so in order to do that, I'm going to get my line at 17. So I'm going to go right here from the edge, and this one I don't have to go to the edge. I'm just going to make a crow's foot. So again, I'm by myself. I'm going to put a nail right there. Okay, it looks like I have blue and red. Now, one thing to understand is red is permanent and blue is not permanent, meaning blue will wash off eventually. Red will be there forever and ever, for the most part. So if you're popping lines on your underlayment, red may be a good choice because they will stay. You can pop lines and 2 weeks later come back and have them there. Blue you won't be as lucky with because they'll wash off. However, if you're laying caps or cutting a valley, blue may be what you want, because then again eventually the line will wash off. So I'm going to go ahead and use blue just for fun. My nail here, I'm just going to wrap my hook around it. If you don't have a hook, just tie a loop in the end and you can just put the loop around there. Now if I'm on the roof, it's the same, except I'm on the ground because this is a mock-up. Okay? Notice, that's another thing, we got to go through all that. Notice when I pop that line, I pulled it tight and I'm not slapping it against the roof, and I'm going to reach out and pop it. I want to lift perpendicular with the roof. If you don't, if you pull it this way or that way, you'll have a line way down here. You want to pull it one time, let it go, walk away. You can really mess it up. So determining our lines, we've got 2 exposures, which is just over 10. It's 10 1/4. So I'm not going to pop 5 1/8 lines all the way up. But if you've got a 100-foot run, you may want to do that, because every row you're going to eat up 1/8 of an inch, which may be 1 or 2 rows of shingles, could be a couple of bundles by the time you finish the job. I know I never worried about that. So I'm just going to go 10 inches all the way up. Now, laminated shingles, again, we determined 18.5 was our first line, so the consecutive lines are going to be 11.25. Again, I'm not popping an 1/8 inch line. I'm going to go 11 inches from there. We're staying with 3 tabs, so we're going to go 10. But you got to figure it out, because there may be brands out there that are still at the 10-inch exposure. Tamco has now switched to the metric, along with GAF, Certainty, Owens Corning, all those guys. So the first step, I'm going to measure up 10 inches. So let's get right in that tape. Now I'm just going to mark 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. That's it. That's all I got. I'm right at 80 is my last mark, but I'm not going to lay that one. So I'm not going to mark that one. However, this is where the layout is important, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to measure down to my last mark here, and it's 9 3/4. 9 3/4. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to mark 9 3/4. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and pop that line. Again, I'm by myself. This mock-up's a little sketchy. Okay. Okay, let's see what we got. If it's not an even number, and it is, but I'm going to put it right on. So if you've got a great run that you're doing, sometimes a ridge is not straight, only because it has irregularities in it. So when you measure, you might find that one side and the other side is not quite straight with the eave. That's what this is supposed to do. What this does is this divides all the rows up evenly, so that if it's not straight, you won't see it in the edge, and you won't see it in the ridge, and clearly you won't see it in the field, because it'll be just a little bit each time. So I've got my tape on the top, and I'm going to move to the nearest mark, which is 70. Again, we made it easy. So if it was 11s, it's going to be a multiple of 11. Right now it's a multiple of 10, which is 70. Now I'm just going to mark my 10s here. 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. There we go. Now I just got to snap those lines, and it'll be all laid out and ready to go. Okay, so moving on. Yesterday we got the first line going for 3-tab shingles, and we got the rest of the marks in. Got a line up top and marks down the other side. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pop the lines, and again, I'm by myself. Now usually you've got more rows than just 8 feet whenever you're dealing with a roof. This roof probably has 15 feet, maybe 18 feet to the ridge. So there's a lot more room to make up irregularities between the drip edge and the ridge if it's out of square. This video literally just covered the basics. There's a lot more to popping lines on a roof whenever you're dealing with a whole roof, but hopefully this video got you started, and so you could capture the basics and then learn as you go when you go to lay out your own panel. So you're going to find that roofs are out of square. That's just the way it is. This lesson is to get the bottom row straight and then to get the top row straight, and from the top to the bottom all these rows in here will adjust if needed just a little bit in order to make the roof look good even if it is out of square.